So this is what's fun about shooting with the iPhone. I can literally just put it in my pocket and run around this entire amazingly beautiful scene. So this is what I mean. We were just on this hill a little bit lower earlier, and we took this incredible shot. Now the light is still with us. The light is still working in our favor. So here we are at a much higher vantage point now, and I came here for a reason. Now I like that first shot. I actually really like that first shot. Everything about it just like makes me want to smile. But it was a wide angle shot, and I love shooting wide angle, especially when I'm shooting landscapes. Wide angles work so well because it allows you to include all those elements that we talked about, the foreground, the middle ground, the background, these layers that create depth and dimension in an image, and it takes a three-dimensional world and allow us to still capture that even though it's portrayed and displayed in a two-dimensional medium. So having those layers is really nice, and a wide angle really gives us the best opportunities to do it. So why the 2X? Why the telephoto? The reason why we use a telephoto lens has nothing to do with the distance to the subject. It has everything to do with compression. And what does that mean? All we're trying to do is make those mountains loom as large as possible in this frame. The highlight's going to be the light falling on these mountains. That's what we're hoping for. So the larger they are in that frame, the more prominent the light falling on those faces of those mountains are going to be. Now also when I compress it, what that means is it looks like the mountains are right on top of this village, compressing everything in that scene rather than stretching them out and making them look further and further apart. So I'm actually simplifying the composition by walking up this hill, switching over to my 2X, my telephoto lens, and taking all those elements that I like. Actually now I'm removing that foreground, but I'm taking the most important elements, that village in now my foreground, and those incredible mountains that are gonna be highlight by that setting sun in that background, and compressing them to both simplify my frame and tell an amazing story about light and this entire scene. So right now I have the 1X set up. Now you can tell right away that we're much further away. I just kind of hiked right up this hill over here for a reason, not to shoot with this wide angle anymore. Why? Because there's nothing interesting in the foreground and in that sky, just like I showed you earlier. But this is why I'm going to switch to my 2X. Watch what happens when I do that. Everything just kind of zooms in, right? I fill the frame with the most important parts of this image. I fill the frame with this village. I fill the frame with these gorgeous mountains in that background that are catching that light by that setting sun that's going to get more golden and more directional and more better as it gets lower and lower in the horizon. So this is a really cool shot. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to take this photo. Now you might notice that there's something that might be bothering you as much as it's going to bother me, is I really like the shot, but remember, we're still in that 16:9 aspect ratio. It's more wide than it is tall, meaning that it crops into it just a little bit. It's almost just a little bit too much in this frame here. If we take a look at this, I really like this composition. I think it's stunning, but we might just a tiny bit, I'm not sure, but a tiny bit, we might be cutting off a little bit too much of that sky. I may want just a little bit more room above those mountain peaks to give them room to breathe so it doesn't feel so claustrophobic, as well as just below this village. There's just a little bit too tight. How do we fix it? Just like this. Where it says photo, swipe to the left, click 16:9, tap back on 4:3, which is going to change me back to my original ratio, and you'll see I have a lot more room to work with in the sky and in the grass. Swipe back to the right so it's not as distracting, and then frame up that same shot I did before and take that photo. Now that is the shot right there. I still like that slightly tighter crop, but now I have the flexibility to choose later which one I like the most, because we're losing the light by the second. You might even be able to see this light change on my face while recording this, so we don't have a lot of time to work. That's the beauty about shooting with a phone. I can do the 16:9, I can do the 4:3 like that in a second, in less than a second, and make sure that I get the shot that I'm gonna like the most. I can decide later. You need to work fast, just like that sun is working fast to approach the horizon. So there we have it, two incredible images. Honestly, it's hard to take a bad shot when you're standing in front of this, but we worked the scene. We didn't just stop with that first wide angle shot. I'm glad we took it, but once you have it, then you go on to another shot, work the scene, try and get a different angle, That's exactly what we did. We had to work fast, and you're gonna need to work fast too. As that light starts changing, the closer it gets to the horizon, the faster and faster it gets. It's sort of like a roll of toilet paper. The closer it gets to the end, the faster it goes. You just want to work as fast as you can. This is the best tool to be able to do it. So now that we got that last shot, we got that telephoto, you'll be able to see the difference between that wide angle that has a little bit more layers to it, a little bit more color, a little bit more pop to that foreground, a little bit more depth and dimension, but also the simplicity of that 2X cannot be overstated as well. Both of those shots work. That's why we took both of them, and we were able to do that and work fast because we're shooting with the phone. Now you might notice there's a little bit more light on me, but we've lost all the good light. What does that mean? Well, now if we look back at this scene, it's all gonna be in shadow. We're not getting that highlight next to shadow, highlight next to shadow. We're not getting our focal point, that village, being illuminated by the setting sun, and then behind it falling into shadow to contrast the two and make it pop out. That's what happened when we took that shot. Now it's fallen into shadow. So we're here filming just to wrap this up, to explain it to you when we still have a little bit of light left, but the best light, you always want to be taking photographs. One more thing. Do you guys hear those cowbells? That just brings me right back to the first time that I spent in the Alps, my very first trip out of the country even. And nothing brings me back, not even photos brings me back the same way the smell of this air and the sound of those cowbells do. The reason why that brings me back, the sound of those cowbells rather than the images themselves, is because I was in the moment. I was there, I was present, and I was listening, and I was taking everything in, not just the light, everything, the sounds, the smells, the feeling of this cold breeze, all of it. That's what brings me right back to that place. Too many photographers are just worried about the light. They're just worried about their gear. They're just worried about the photo. There's more than just the photo. There's the cowbells. There's the moment. So after you've got your shot, after you've captured that image in the best possible light, never forget to just stop for a second and take all of this in, all of it. Breathe in the air, listen to the cowbells, all of it. So when you get home, anytime for the rest of your life, you hear those cowbells, you'll be in this moment. You'll remember this moment. You won't just have a photo of being here. You will have been here. Never forget that. You want to have that memory too.